The flickering fluorescent light above cast a sickly yellow glow on the cold metal bed frame where I, Ava, sat curled up. I wasn't Ava anymore, though. Not to the people who held me here. To them, I was someone else. A madwoman. A label they'd slapped on me with the same chilling efficiency they administered the drugs that left me a trembling. Hollow shell. Empty pill bottles and used syringes littered the small table beside the bed, remnants of the latest assault on my mind and body. Just 6 months ago, I was Ava Sterling, CEO of Sterling Designs, a renowned fashion designer, and happily married to a handsome, loving husband. Now, my identity stolen, I endured endless medication and the agonizing ache of betrayal. But this morning, I escaped. The sounds of the ward echoed around me, the disjointed sing-song of nursery rhymes from a group huddled in the corner, the theatrical whispers of others lost in elaborate games of espionage. The air was thick with the antiseptic tang of disinfectant, layered over an undercurrent of tense chaos. They were all mad, they said. Except me. I was the sane one, trapped in a nightmare. 275 days, 6 hours and 37 minutes. That's how long I'd been counting. Each electric shock, each forced injection, each moment of despair that drove me to the brink of self-destruction. None of it broke my mind. It only strengthened my resolve. I knew I wasn't crazy. I was a victim, a pawn in a cruel game orchestrated by my own mother and twin sister. My sister, Chloe, and I were identical twins, mirror images of each other. To most, we were indistinguishable. We'd had a happy childhood, at least until I was 7. That's when the nightmares began. I was a gifted pianist, and my father took me to a competition out of state. A car accident. He died instantly. I survived. My mother and Chloe, who had stayed home, were devastated. The grief twisted my mother, turning her love into a volatile cocktail of rage and despair. She developed bipolar disorder. She blamed me. If I hadn't played the piano, if I hadn't gone to the competition, if... The ifs were endless, and they fueled her relentless abuse. Chloe, on the other hand, was showered with affection, spoiled beyond measure. I couldn't take it. I escaped to college and cut off all contact. Chloe, under my mother's warped influence, became a wild child, a delinquent, a social parasite. Then, 6 months ago, my mother contacted me. She claimed she was dying of cancer, that she wanted to see me one last time. It was a trap. A meticulously planned scheme to switch our identities. She declared me insane, had me committed to this private asylum, and Chloe stepped into my life. 270-odd days. I couldn't bear to dwell on the horrors I'd endured. A sudden rush of footsteps outside snapped me back to the present. The nurses were coming, their rounds of medication a grim ritual I knew all too well. This was it. The moment I'd been planning for 2 grueling months. My hand tightened around the wrench I'd hidden under my pillow. A month ago, the plumbing had broken. I'd stealthily pocketed the plumber's wrench, my weapon, my key to freedom. Patient 46, medication time. The nurse's voice was cold, devoid of empathy, a sharp shard piercing my eardrums. I remained still, a statue of defiance. A flicker of impatience crossed the nurse's face. She strode towards me, her fingers clamping down on my jaw, forcing my head back. She tried to pry my mouth open. I fought back, my body a coil of resistance. She slapped me, hard, across the face. Take your meds. No. Crack. The wrench connected with her head. Not a fatal blow, but enough to incapacitate. The other nurse, carrying a tray of pills, froze, her eyes wide with shock, before she screamed and fled. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline surging through me. I roared at the patients in the common room, down. Get down. They obeyed, a wave of bodies collapsing onto the floor. It was a game, a twisted drill I'd practiced with this group of genuinely ill individuals for 2 months. Me, the sane one, training the insane. The patients, in their confused state, provided a chaotic distraction, tangling with the pursuing nurses and doctors. I raced towards the west exit, the one used by the cleaning staff, a route I'd carefully observed. I found the cleaner, stunned and bewildered, talking on her phone, the screen still unlocked. I struck her with the wrench, the impact sending her sprawling. I grabbed the phone, quickly recording the pandemonium. In the common room, this asylum, I knew, was rife with corruption, the staff taking bribes to mistreat the patients. The video captured their brutality, their vicious attacks on the prone figures on the floor. Pocketing the phone, I changed into the cleaner's uniform, a stained, ill-fitting disguise, and hurried out the main gate. This was my 14th escape attempt. This time, it was successful. I breathed in the air, the sweet, intoxicating air of freedom, and started walking, each step taking me further away from the hell I'd left behind. My life had been stolen. Now, I was going to take it back. The midday sun beat down mercilessly, almost melting me where I stood. Luckily, I found some loose change in the cleaner's pockets. I hailed a taxi and directed it to Sterling Designs. This was the company I had built from the ground up with my husband, Ethan. It was the culmination of our blood, sweat, and tears. Specializing in fashion trading, Sterling Designs boasted annual revenues in the millions. The name was a combination of my name and Ethan's middle name. Ethan and I had a deep, unwavering love, forged in the fires of shared hardship. He understood my past, my pain, and he cherished me. This betrayal by my mother and sister, my greatest fear was for Ethan. Those two women were capable of anything. Had Ethan discovered that the woman he shared his bed with was an imposter? I stepped out of the taxi and rushed towards the company entrance, my heart a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and anxiety. If Ethan knew what had happened, he would help me. I was sure of it. Just as I reached the glass doors, they swung open. A tall, striking woman emerged, dripping in designer clothes and clutching a handbag that probably cost more than my first car. Chloe. I recoiled, darting behind a nearby trash bin. Ethan and I, mindful of the hard work it took to build our wealth, were never extravagant. I'd never owned a bag that expensive. Seeing Chloe flaunting my stolen wealth, living my life, ignited a fresh wave of fury. Had Ethan noticed the difference? Chloe's spending habits were a stark contrast to mine. If he had, why hadn't he come looking for me? Or had something happened to him, too? I watched Chloe climb into a brand new luxury car and speed away. I waited behind the trash bin for another 2 hours, the stench of rotting refuse. A constant reminder of my current predicament. Passers-by gave me wide berths, mistaking me for a homeless woman in my soiled cleaning uniform. I knew Ethan's schedule. He was a creature of habit, meticulous in his routines. He usually left the office around 2 p.m. to meet with design studios. It was almost 3 p.m. now. Aside from Chloe's brief appearance, there was no sign of Ethan. This wasn't right. I waited another 2 hours, the knot of dread in my stomach tightening with each passing minute. Still no Ethan. A chilling premonition washed over me. I had to fight the urge to storm into the building. These months in the asylum had taught me one crucial lesson: patience. I needed to stay calm, to think strategically. I still had one good friend in the city, a tattoo artist named Sarah. She lived in the west part of the city. I took another taxi to her apartment complex, a place where Sarah and I co-owned a small unit. It was our secret sanctuary, a place only we could use, boyfriends strictly excluded. I'd moved out after I got married, but Sarah, still single, lived there. I knocked, my knuckles white against the wood. Sarah opened the door, her face a mask of confusion. "Sarah, it's me, Ava," I said, my voice trembling with exhaustion and the sheer weight of my ordeal. I was barely holding myself together. Sarah's eyes widened. "What the hell? Ava? Didn't you just insult me at the mall today, saying I was too uncultured to be your friend? Are you losing it?" Understanding dawned. Chloe, in her impersonation of me, had even alienated my closest friend. My concern for Ethan intensified. "I'll explain everything later," I said, grabbing Sarah's hand. "Do you know what happened to Ethan? Why isn't he at the company?" Sarah's eyes widened even further, her expression a mixture of disbelief and pity. He fell down the stairs a few months ago. He's in a vegetative state. Didn't you know?" "Ava, what's going on?" "Vegetative state." The words hit me like a physical blow. I was numb, reeling. My worst fears had been realized, only the reality was far crueler than I could have imagined. They hadn't just stolen my life, they'd taken Ethan's too. My early childhood was one full of abuse. My mother would often punish me for the smallest things. Once, when it was below freezing, she forced me to stand barefoot outside. I developed severe frostbite that continued to get worse. Ethan would apply medicated soaks to my feet. Back when we lived in a tiny rental house, it was often cold. He would hold my feet in his lap, keeping them warm. Tears streamed down my face, silent sobs racking my body. He was the light in my dark world. Ava, what's happening?" Sarah shook me, her voice laced with alarm. I trembled, struggling to regain control. Sarah, sensing my distress, guided me to the sofa and brought me a mug of warm milk. I gulped it down, the warmth spreading through my chilled body, slowly restoring some semblance of strength. Haltingly, I recounted the entire horrific story to Sarah, my mother's betrayal, Chloe's cruelty, the asylum, my escape. Sarah listened, her face a canvas of shock and outrage. "How could they do this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "She's your own mother." "They're monsters," I said, my voice raw with anger. "I can't let them get away with this. Ethan's in a vegetative state. They'll probably try to get rid of him soon. He's the majority shareholder in the company." A plan, a dangerous, desperate plan, began to form in my mind. I gripped Sarah's hand tightly. "Sarah, you're a tattoo artist, right? I need your help." Sarah nodded, her eyes unwavering. "You don't need to ask, Ava. We're in this together." I slept at Sarah's place for a full day, exhausted but driven. The next evening, Sarah returned with the supplies I'd asked her to buy. I packed them into a bag, ready to leave. "Ava, are you sure you don't want me to come with you?" Sarah asked, her eyes filled with concern. I shook my head. I couldn't involve her any further. She'd already done too much, put herself at risk. I left the apartment and found a payphone. I dialed the number of the asylum director, Dr. Chin. He answered, his voice gruff and impatient. "Who is this?" "It's me, Dr. Chin," I said. A sharp intake of breath on the other end. He knew. "Dr. Chin," I continued, my voice cold and steady, "you know I'm not insane, yet you cooperated with my mother, holding me captive for months. How much did she pay you?" "Where are you?" he demanded, his voice laced with panic. He clearly realized the trouble he was in. "Don't worry about where I am," I said, a chilling smile playing on my lips. "Check the asylum's public email. I sent you something." There was a pause, followed by the rustling of clothes. He was probably at his computer, opening the email. I'd sent him a gift, a damning piece of evidence. His voice, now a frantic whisper, reached me. "What do you want? Where are you?" I chuckled softly. "I'll give you two options, Dr. Chen. One, you do as I say. When this is over, I'll pay you 10 times what my mother gave you. Or," my voice dropped to a menacing whisper, "the videos of your staff abusing patients, along with my medical reports documenting my injuries, will be released to the public. You'll go to prison, Dr. Chen. A long, unpleasant stay." Silence. Then, his voice, now ingratiating, filled with a desperate plea. "Miss Sterling, we can work something out." "Of course, we can," I said, my smile widening. Some things were negotiable. But crossing my bottom line? That was unforgivable. I hung up and pulled the brim of my baseball cap lower, shielding my face. It was time to visit my mother. My mother had a routine. She went to the local square every evening to dance. I might have distanced myself from her, but I hadn't forgotten her habits. Like her penchant for leaving the house key on the ledge above the door or under the doormat. The small, 2-story house with a private courtyard was one I'd bought for her. It was supposed to be a peace offering, a way to ensure she and Chloe would leave me alone, stop demanding money. But she hadn't wanted a retirement home. She'd wanted my life, Ethan's life, our company. I reached the door. My mother was out, dancing, as expected. I had roughly 3 hours. I stood on tiptoe, feeling along the top of the doorframe. My fingers brushed against a keyring, holding 2 keys. I'd opted for traditional keys instead of a digital lock, thinking it would be easier for her. Now, I was grateful for that decision. I unlocked the outer door, then the inner one, and stepped inside. On the balcony, there was a large, comfortable lounge chair. I knew Chloe's nature. She was laziness personified, always seeking the easiest, most comfortable option. I brought a stool over and carefully installed a miniature camera in a discreet location on the upper part of the balcony. Then I tidied up, putting everything back in its original place. I was sweating, my heart pounding in my chest. I left the house, carefully replacing the keys. I returned to Sarah's apartment, where she was anxiously awaiting my return. "You're back." Sarah greeted me, relief flooding her face. "Sarah, can I borrow your laptop?" I asked, taking the bag off my shoulder. Sarah nodded, leading me to her study and opening her laptop. I connected the camera's receiver, my tech skills honed by years of running a business. Soon, the screen displayed a live feed from my mother's balcony. Sarah sat beside me, watching intently. Suddenly, she pointed at the screen. "There's your sister." I focused on the image. It was Chloe, dressed in stylish clothes, clearly preparing for a night out at a club. Most likely, she was heading to Club Paradise, the most exclusive night spot in the city. My mother poured Chloe a glass of water. Judging by Chloe's appearance, she'd already been drinking. My mother's voice, clear and distinct, came through the speakers. "You need to be careful. Your sister never went to nightclubs. If someone notices something's off, you'll be in trouble." "What trouble?" Chloe retorted, pushing away the glass of water my mother offered. "One's in an asylum, probably won't survive the winter. And the other? A vegetable." He actually realized I wasn't Ava, so I pushed him down the stairs and I even gave him poison needles. I think he's done for. Such a shame. He was really handsome, but he's no good for me in that state. "You know, Mom, I even brought 2 guys home once, right in front of him." Haha. He just watched. My fists clenched, my knuckles turning white. It took all my self-control to take a deep breath and start recording the conversation. "Chloe, you like men so much? I'll make sure you have plenty." I recorded everything Chloe said, capturing her confession on video. Sarah, listening beside me, couldn't contain her disgust. "They're animals. How could they do something like that?" I closed the laptop, turning to Sarah. "Sarah, do you know anyone at Club Paradise?" Chloe would almost certainly be going there tonight. And with my stolen money, she would choose the best, Club Paradise. Sarah, as a tattoo artist, had connections in the nightlife scene. She knew a few people who worked at various clubs. I asked her to contact 2 young men she knew, who were reliable and discreet. They were college students, studying dance, and they worked part-time at the club to earn extra money. It was a common arrangement. Sarah quickly got in touch with them. I offered them a generous sum, $20,000 each. Their mission, to seduce Chloe, get her drunk, and bring her to a specific location. I showed them Chloe's picture. They recognized her immediately, saying she was a regular at the club and had even shared drinks with them before. That made things even easier. I also paid for 2 private booths at Club Paradise in a dimly lit, secluded area, with the help of the 2 young men. As I suspected, Chloe had a weakness for younger men. They easily lured her to our booths. I sat in the shadows, my face hidden, my back to Chloe's booth. Chloe's unrestrained laughter grated on my ears. It made me sick. The 2 young men, knowing I was their benefactor and watching their every move, put on a show. They used every trick in the book, pouring drinks down her throat, playing drinking games, even feeding her alcohol-soaked fruit. Chloe reveled in the attention, the excitement. It didn't take long for her to become completely intoxicated. The 2 young men glanced at me, unsure of what to do next. Their part was done. I gave them a thumbs up. They understood and left. I slowly stood up and walked towards Chloe, who was slumped over the table, completely passed out. The stench of alcohol wafted from her. I smiled coldly. Chloe was in a stupor. Sarah and I carefully helped her out of the brightly lit, throbbing nightclub. Being women, our presence didn't attract much attention. People probably assumed we were friends helping a drunk companion home. I took Chloe to a pre-booked room at a small, seedy motel, the kind tucked away in back alleys, where they rarely checked IDs. I put Chloe on the bed. Sarah retrieved her tattoo kit from the car. Sarah held up a syringe filled with anesthetic, looking at me for confirmation. I nodded. Sarah injected the anesthetic into Chloe's arm. It was best to keep Chloe unconscious for what was about to happen. The motel might be lax, but if Chloe woke up and started screaming, it would complicate things. With the anesthetic taking effect, Chloe was now deeply asleep, almost lifeless. I pulled a set of patient's pajamas from my bag, the standard uniform of the asylum. Dr. Chin, now my reluctant ally, had been surprisingly accommodating. I stripped Chloe of her clothes and dressed her in the asylum pajamas. Then I turned to Sarah, pointing to a small mole behind Chloe's ear. "Sarah," I said, my voice firm, "let's begin." Sarah, a seasoned tattoo artist with years of experience, was well regarded in the city. My request was simple: remove the mole behind Chloe's ear and replicate it on the same spot behind my own. Sarah removed Chloe's mole first, then, looking at me, took a deep breath. "One last time, are you sure about this, Ava?" I nodded, my heart heavy with a profound sense of loss. My identity had been stolen by Chloe and my mother. Now, I was taking it back. But I knew, deep down, that I was no longer the person I used to be. The experiences had irrevocably changed me. Sarah sighed and injected a local anesthetic into the skin behind my left ear. The dim light of the motel room was augmented by the harsh glare of Sarah's surgical lamp. I closed my eyes, unable to bear the sight. Despite the anesthetic, the prick of the needle was still faintly perceptible, a pain that resonated deep within my soul. An hour later, the tattoo was complete. I examined myself in the mirror, marveling at Sarah's skill. It was a perfect imitation, virtually indistinguishable from the original. "Sarah, you should head back. Drive safely, and thank you," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. Sarah hugged me, speechless in the face of the monstrous betrayal I'd suffered at the hands of my own family. Comfort seemed inadequate. After Sarah left, I meticulously put on the clothes I'd taken from Chloe. Standing before the motel's cracked mirror, I applied a heavy layer of makeup, mimicking Chloe's flamboyant style. Then, with painstaking care, I used makeup remover to cleanse Chloe's face, revealing her bare skin. I unstyled her hair, letting it fall naturally. Chloe, still deeply intoxicated, looked haggard and exhausted, the spitting image of the Ava who had supposedly escaped from the asylum. I picked up Chloe's handbag, retrieving her Dior lipstick and applying a thick coat to my lips. From this moment on, I was Chloe. And Chloe was me. I stepped out of the cramped motel room and into the narrow alley. At a nearby convenience store, I bought a bottle of liquor and took swigs as I walked. Reeking of alcohol, I hailed a taxi and returned to Club Paradise. I went straight to the parking lot and, using the keys from Chloe's bag, unlocked the Porsche Cayenne. Chloe was certainly a spendthrift. This car was top of the line. I loved it. I called for a designated driver, instructing them to take the car to my mother's house. The driver, after collecting his fee, responsibly helped me to the door and knocked. My mother, seeing my drunken state, showed no sign of suspicion that her two daughters had switched places again. She rushed to help me inside, and I collapsed onto the sofa. "I told you to drink less, drink less. Look at you," she scolded, fussing over me. She prepared a glass of sugar water and helped me drink it, then wrung out a hot towel and wiped my face. I wasn't actually drunk. I'd only had half a bottle of Jiangxia Bai, a mild Chinese spirit, and the rest I'd spilled on myself. I was completely lucid, acutely aware of the situation. For the first time, I was experiencing genuine maternal care. From a young age, I'd been deprived of this kind of unconditional love. I waved my hand dismissively, pushing my mother's hand away, mimicking Chloe's usual petulance. "I'm too drunk to go home," I slurred. "I'll sleep here tonight." "You can sleep here. I'll make up the bed for you. Last time, because you were drunk, Ethan noticed something was not right, and you pushed him down the stairs. Let's not have any more screw-ups." Even though I already knew about this, hearing it directly from my mother's lips sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't dare engage in extended conversation with my mother. The more I spoke, the greater the risk of making a mistake. Pretending to have a splitting headache, I stumbled into the guest bedroom, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the bed. My mother, still fussing, removed my jacket and covered me with a warm silk comforter. It was around 2 or 3 a.m., and most elderly people couldn't stay up that late. I heard the sound of the door closing in the other bedroom. I pulled the comforter over my head, creating a private sanctuary, and sent a WeChat message to Dr. Chin. "Call my mother at 6. Come and get her at 7. The anesthetic Sarah had given Chloe would wear off completely in about 4 hours. Chloe was a light sleeper. Chloe would likely wake up around 6. When she did, she'd discover she'd been dumped in a cheap motel. The hangover wouldn't be enough to make her notice the missing mole. Given her personality, her first instinct would be to come here, to my mother. Chloe was a classic mama's girl, spoiled rotten by my mother. She'd always been a troublemaker, knowing her mother would always bail her out. Her first reaction to finding herself in this situation would be to come here. I'd calculated the timing perfectly and coordinated with Dr. Chin. Finally, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I fell into a deep sleep. As predicted, my mother received a call from Dr. Chin around 6 a.m. After hanging up, she rushed into my room, panic etched on her face. Chloe, bad news. Your sister escaped from the asylum. What do we do?" I sat up groggily, looking at my mother's terrified face. A coldness spread through me. Her only emotion towards her younger daughter was fear, the fear of being held accountable. But she didn't realize I was already on the path to holding her accountable. "Mom, calm down. I'm hungry. Let's have breakfast first, I said, my voice calm and controlled. If she's escaped, she'll probably come looking for us. Let's just wait for her. We can call Dr. Chen later and have the asylum staff come and take her back. Perhaps my composure reassured her because my mother seemed less agitated. She even went out to buy me youtiao, fried dough sticks, eggs, and dufuno, tofu pudding. Just as we finished our dufuno, there was a frantic pounding on the door. And Chloe's frantic shouts. Mom, open the door. Open up. My mother looked at me. I walked past her to the door and opened it. Chloe, standing on the doorstep, looked utterly wretched. And she had every right to be. Her wallet, her phone, her car keys, everything that could prove her identity had been taken by me. I'd even, with a shudder of disgust, swapped underwear with her. She was now completely and utterly Ava Sterling. And I was Chloe. Chloe, seeing me, was initially shocked, but then she understood. She shoved past me, bursting into the house. She screamed at my mother, Mom, why are you with her? Call Dr. Chen. Have her arrested. No. She's the one who did this. I don't know how she got me to that motel, but she stole my bag and my car keys. Mom, what are you waiting for? Get her. My mother was stunned, but seeing Chloe's frantic, aggressive behavior, she instinctively stepped back. Chloe was truly losing it. Seeing my mother's hesitation and her guarded stance enraged Chloe. She pointed at me, unleashing a torrent of abuse, vulgar insults, her face contorted with rage. Her behavior was so typical of the real Chloe that my mother started to have some doubts. She turned her gaze toward me. Chloe, pointing, screamed, she's a bitch. I wish she would die in that asylum. She's escaped to trick you. I smirked coldly. Ava, did you finally learn something in that asylum? Playing the victim now? You asked for it, didn't you? I started mimicking her behavior. I retorted, mimicking her mannerisms, her outbursts. I'd been bullied by her my whole life. I knew her every move. For a moment, my mother was completely bewildered. My mother, her face grim, suddenly grabbed my arm and pulled at my left ear, examining it closely. It was a comical gesture, but my heart skipped a beat. I was immensely grateful I'd anticipated this, otherwise my plan would have unraveled. My mother, seeing the mole behind my left ear, immediately released me and stood by my side. Chloe was furious. She yelled at my mother, Mom, are you blind? I'm Chloe. She escaped from the asylum to trick you. Just look at the mole. Look closely. Chloe turned her head, but there was nothing behind her ear. My mother was enraged. The manic energy that radiated from her sent a shiver of fear through me. This rage had been a constant presence throughout my childhood and adolescence. Are you really insane? Did they give you too much medication in the asylum? My mother roared. She lunged at Chloe, grabbing her hair and slapping her hard across the face. Chloe and I both had long, straight black hair. I'd even trimmed mine at the motel to match Chloe's style. Now, she was completely defeated by a single mole. My mother, in a frenzy, continued to beat Chloe, just as she had beaten me countless times throughout my childhood. Chloe hadn't experienced this before. She was truly stunned by my mother's violence. I know what it's like when my mother is in her manic state. I had experienced it firsthand. Chloe's face was swollen, her lip bruised and bleeding. She stared at my mother, dumbfounded. She was the spoiled one, unaccustomed to pain, utterly terrified. Suddenly, there was another urgent pounding on the door. It was Dr. Chen, with the asylum staff, coming to take Chloe away. My mother gripped Chloe's arm tightly. Chloe struggled violently, truly terrified. She sobbed and screamed, her cries indistinguishable from those of a genuinely insane person. Mom, listen to me. I'm not Ava. I'm Chloe. She tricked us both. Look at me, Mom. I'm Chloe. I'm Chloe. My mother, convinced by the mole, shoved Chloe towards Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, with my leverage over him, had personally come to handle this. He glanced at me, discreetly pulling Chloe towards the asylum van. Chloe's screams were almost ear-piercing, making her seem truly insane. I watched her go, a cold satisfaction settling in my heart. But this wasn't enough. She owed me so much more. Chloe was taken away by Dr. Chen. I suppressed my emotions, dealing with my mother for a while, then made the excuse of needing to check on the company and left. My primary concern was Ethan. I drove straight home. The housekeeper had been replaced. Chloe, likely fearing that the previous housekeeper, Mrs. Lee, who had been with us for a long time, would recognize her as an imposter, had hired someone new. This new housekeeper seemed inexperienced. I immediately gave her a severance package and dismissed her. She seemed surprisingly happy, suggesting that Chloe wasn't an easy employer. With the housekeeper gone, I learned from her that Chloe had moved Ethan to the basement. When we'd made our first big profit, we'd bought this house, attracted by its beautiful surroundings and its privacy, a detached villa. Including the basement, it had 4 floors, with front and back gardens. The only downside was that some of the basement rooms were damp and poorly lit. I hurried to the basement and found Ethan in the innermost room. It was our old storage room, now emitting a dim, flickering light. Before I even reached the door, I was assaulted by a nauseating stench of urine and other foul odors. I pushed open the door, my eyes widening in disbelief. The damp, 30-square-meter room contained only a hospital bed and a simple shelf. On the bed lay a man, his eyes tightly closed. Only the tubes attached to his body and the faint beeping of a monitor indicated that he was alive. I walked slowly towards the bed, my heart aching with a burning hatred. Chloe's excuse for taking Ethan from the hospital had been to move him to a seaside sanatorium. Instead, she dumped him in the basement to rot. Ethan was covered in bedsores, his body emitting a putrid smell. Trembling, I grasped Ethan's hand and knelt beside the bed. I was the one who had caused this. He, such a kind, talented man, had been reduced to this because he'd married me. I collapsed onto his body, sobbing uncontrollably. Perhaps he sensed my presence because his stiff fingers twitched slightly. I clutched his hand, but the fleeting moment of hope was quickly overshadowed by the sight of his still, silent face. Ethan, it's over. It's all over. I'll never let anyone hurt you again. Never, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. I gently held Ethan. I was lucky to have returned in time. There was still a chance. The next month was a whirlwind of activity. I moved Ethan to the best hospital in the city, ensuring he received the best possible care. Then, I focused on restoring the company. Chloe had filled the HR and finance departments with her useless cronies, driving out many of our long-term employees. I had to swallow my pride and personally plead with them to return. Luckily, I'd built up some goodwill over the years. They attributed my recent erratic behavior to a mental breakdown. Soon, both the house and the company were stabilized. I was in my office, working on a new project, when my mother called. She'd been calling me frequently, inviting me over for meals. But I'd been avoiding her, making excuses, just as Chloe used to do. But today, I had to go. There was unfinished business. I drove to my mother's house. She was waiting at the door, wearing an apron, a welcoming smile on her face. Chloe, come in. I made your favorite meat pies. I nodded, taking a black paper bag from the trunk of my car, and followed my mother inside. I sat on the sofa. My mother brought me the meat pies along with Chloe's favorite fruits, strawberries and watermelon. Mom, don't fuss. I bought these peaches. Try them, they're very sweet. Peaches? My mother froze, her face turning pale. She looked as if she'd been struck on the head, momentarily stunned. I smiled coldly. Yes, peaches. The one fruit Chloe would never touch. She had severe allergies, especially to peaches. Eating them caused excruciating itching, so intense she would scratch herself raw. I looked up at my mother, her face ashen, her body trembling. With deliberate nonchalance, I took a plump, juicy peach from the black paper bag, didn't even bother to wipe it, and took a large bite, right in front of her. You. My mother started to tremble uncontrollably. Yes, you guessed right. I'm Ava. And your precious daughter is locked up in the asylum. My mother was frantic. She fumbled for her phone, trying to make a call. Mom, don't bother. Dr. Chin is on my side now. I have leverage over him. Besides, you gave Dr. Chin 100,000. I gave him 2 million. I think he'd rather do business with me. I paused, savoring the look of utter despair on my mother's face. 2 million is enough to torture Chloe to death. She's your sister. Why are you doing this? My mother, enraged, lunged at me, but I pushed her away. When I was a child, she could beat me with impunity. Now, she was old, no longer capable of inflicting the same abuse. She hadn't expected me to fight back. In that instant, her eyes filled with a deep, primal fear. I grabbed her arm, my voice dripping with cold contempt. Mom, because you gave me this worthless life, I still have to call you Mother. But do you deserve it? My father's death was an accident, not my fault. And all the tragedies in my life are thanks to you. Listen, don't even think about saving my sister. She's not getting out this time. And I've recorded the conversations where you and she plotted to harm Ethan and me. If you insist on saving her, you'll just be sending her from the asylum to prison. And you'll be joining her. My mother's lips trembled, unable to form words. Her body shook uncontrollably. I stood up and took a document from my bag, tossing it onto the table in front of her. This is for a nursing home in the suburbs. You're moving there tomorrow. My mother's face contorted in horror. I won't go. That's not a nursing home. You're just trying to lock me up. You ungrateful wretch. You monster. I laughed. Mom, either you go to prison with your daughter, or you go to the nursing home. You have no choice. Anne. I looked at her coldly. Mothers are supposed to be kind. Do you think you deserve the title of mother? No, you don't. So why should I show you any filial piety? My mother collapsed onto the floor, defeated. Yes, she had no choice. I would never give her another choice. The next day, I sent my mother away and sat on the balcony lounge chair, basking in the sun. Dr. Chin sent me a video. I clicked on it. In the video, Chloe, wearing a patient's gown, screamed hysterically, her body covered in scratches. The other patients, grinning, held Peaches out to her. Given Chloe's state, she would likely be genuinely insane within days. Yes, Peaches. I'd spent over 200 days in the asylum, planning my escape and my Peach project. Every time Peaches were distributed, I'd encourage the patients to play a game with me, rubbing Peaches on my body. After over 200 days of training, Chloe would surely be enjoying the patient's enthusiasm. The agony of the allergic reaction would eventually drive Chloe mad. This was what she owed me. I sent Dr. Chin a large bonus with a note. From now on, I'll sponsor all the Peaches for the asylum. Let the patients eat their fill. I received a thumbs-up emoji from Dr. Chin. A phone call came through. It was from the Binhai Medical Sanatorium. Miss Sterling, good news. Mr. Sterling showed signs of waking up today. What? I jumped up, rushing out of the room. This was truly incredible news.